Hark! We are here. It is time. Today, we are going to go over the first previews of Set 5 of Star Wars Limited, Legends of the Force. We've got a very Force-heavy set, so expect a lot of Force trait synergy, despite the fact that traits are unloved in this game for the most part. We have a lot of cool stuff to go over this week. I was actually originally going to do a slight deck tech instead of this, but I forgot it was preview week. Plus, there's also sector qualifiers over the weekend. We'll probably go over that in a different video. But for now, we're going to talk about the new stuff that's coming in July. July 11th, in fact, a scant 2 weeks before the Galactic Championship. So for all of you meta players out there, it's going to be rough. So without any further ado, let's get into some of the art of Legends of the Force. So on the worst day of the year, every year, April 1st, April Fool's Day, the only people who are fools that are part of April Fools are those that partake in April Fool's Day because it's a bum-ass holiday. We had a leak of the announcement video for Legends of the Force. It showcased a little bit of art. It showcased to us our spotlight leaders, which are going to be Qui-Gon Jinn and Darth Maul. We'll go over all of that later once we cover the stuff that was in the article plus the stream. But on April 2nd, FFG came to us with the spotlight stream, I guess Legends of the Force stream, announced preview, whatever you want to call it specifically. There's a name for it, and I don't want to bother looking it up, where they showed us some cool art. They showed us the cards in full correct view, that not grainy, so we can actually figure things out, and gave us a bunch of information about Legends of the Force, a very heavy Force traded set. So we have here the first piece of art is the key art, and then we'll go over the other arts that we saw. Lots of cool things here. We have the legend himself, Baylan Skoll. We have Yoda. We have Ahsoka. We have Savage, Oppress, Mother Talzin, and Ahsoka's T6, I believe, shuttle. I actually have that right down there. For Legends of the Force. Now, as we know, key art does not represent art in the actual set, but we do expect to see all of these characters in the set. So we're probably going to get a Yoda unit. We're probably going to get an Ahsoka unit, Baylan Skoll unit, Mother Talzin unit. We've already seen a Savage Oppress unit, so that's pretty cool. We'll talk about that later. My expectation is that we'll probably not see another Yoda leader so soon, but Ahsoka and Baylan Skoll leaders I can definitely see, and same thing for Mother Talzin. So there were a couple of other pieces of art showcased to us. First up, we have Chirrut here on Jeddah dealing with the stormtroopers. That's pretty cool. That could be leader art here. Would be very interesting here. Love the stormtroopers in the background. Love the depiction of the character. We have Kylo Ren because, of course, you can't have a Force user set without one of the premier Force users in the sequel trilogy. Then we have a split art here, which is pretty cool. Mother Talzin and not just Mace Windu. This is Shatterpoint's Mace Windu. And if you know what that means, congratulations, you're a cool book reader. If not, basically means that Mace Windu is going to kill you. Great art here. Love it. I actually think that this is probably going to be an event more than it is actually a unit. But cool stuff nonetheless. We have here, have you ever heard of the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? I have no idea what they're going to name this card, but if it doesn't reference the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise in the text of it in some way, shape, or form, whether it's the title or somehow quote-unquote flavor text, what are we even doing here? Next up, we have another Plo Koon. Great art here. Love the depiction of the Keldor. We have Porgs. Spoiler, that's a card in the set. And then last but not least in the art, we do have the art of a Purrgil. So one of the things they talked about a little bit during the stream was this is going to be Force users and creatures, which is why we get Porgs, but also why we get Purrgil, which are slightly Force sensitive. You got to be Force sensitive to know what the hyperspace routes are without a hyperspace computer, right? That is all the cool art we have. Next up, let's take a look at the cards. The major main mechanic of this set that the entire set is based around is a token known as the Force. What does that mean? The Force is with you if you have the Force. When you use the Force, you remove the token from play. So whatever generators are, you can only ever have one Force token. So it generates the Force token for you. And then when you use it based upon an ability, it goes away. And then you have to generate it again in a different way. Well, how does one generate the Force? How do you become one with the Force and you are, the Force is with you? I am with the Force is with me, so on and so forth. Well, we have here 4 brand new bases that are all going to be effectively the same, just different aspects. They're all going to be 28 health. They'll all be the different colors. So we have red, blue, yellow, and green. And then we have, this is Shattered Undercity, the blue base that's going to be tied to the Maul Spotlight deck. They all have the same text that says when a friendly force unit attacks, the force is with you, with the reminder text of create a force token. So you need to attack with a force unit to generate the force, and then you'll have force payoffs, which we'll see a couple of them later on. The green base that we have here is Jedi Temple, which is right here. I imagine yellow is probably going to have something cunning, something like seedy underworld base, and red might have something either completely dark side or something that's a little bit more aggressive, maybe a battlefield, Geonosis, something like that. Maybe not necessarily Geonosis, but something that's very heavily force-based. Maybe Malachor. That'd be pretty cool. That'd be a pretty cool hit for that. So we do have an image here from the announcement video that we saw that actually has 2 cards in here that are not going to be covered as part of the whole package that was showed to us as part of the stream. But we do have a yellow 2-cost Lothcat that is 2 power. We don't know what the health is on it yet. When played, when defeated, you exhaust a ground unit. That Lothcats are cute. They're adorable. They're amazing. Then we have the Ravenous Rathtar here. The only thing we know about it is that it's aggression. It's got 5 health. It is a creature. I actually like the Rathtar a lot. Thought that was a pretty fun theme. And then we'll talk about all of these other cards once we go over the individual things that pertain to each specific side. Let's start off with Darth Maul, Sith Revealed. This is our special rarity aggression villainy leader. He's Force. He is Sith. As an action, you can exhaust him and use the force, which is lose your force token. Deal 1 damage to a unit and then deal 1 damage to a different unit. As an epic action on 6, you can flip him into a 5/6. This is card number 9 out of 264. So first important piece of information, there are 264 cards in the deck, and this is card number 9. Then on the flip side, we have a 6-cost leader, 5/6 Force Sith. On attack, deal 1 damage to a unit and deal 1 damage to a different unit. So ideally, you're going to be trying to use these pings to either delete shields or get damage onto your opponent's units, so that way you can deal things with damaged units based upon those different types of effects like Tarkin Town. But there's also a strategy here where you can combine this with your own grit units, where you can deal a damage to an opponent's unit and then a damage to one of your units, so you can activate that grit and get those extra damage bonuses based upon that, which is pretty cool. The preview slide that we had for Maul's side of the deck has 5 cards total here, including a few bangers as it pertains to what Darth Maul wants to do. So we're not going to go over the set numbers and potentially the rarities. There's 1 common and uncommon, 3 special rarities, but we are going to focus on what these actually do. So we have here Darth Sidious, the Phantom Menace, 8-cost vigilance villainy, 6 power, 8 health, 4 separatist Sith traits, restore 2. That's pretty big. When played, you may use the Force. If you do, defeat each non-Sith unit with 3 or less remaining HP. So a combination of something like Snoke setting up and then dropping Sidious to be able to clear out a lot of those units off your opponent's side of the board is pretty nasty as long as you have the Force. And you just got to make sure that you don't defeat your own units when it comes to stuff like that. But even being able to just, if your opponent has a bunch of damaged units, which they should with Maul's ability, you can play Sidious, use your Force, get rid of the token, and then pop. Just pop the board. Anything with 3 or less remaining HP, that's pretty nasty. We have here Drain Essence. This is a 2-cost vigilance villainy event, force event. Deal 2 damage to a unit and the force is with you. So this was actually one of the things I was worried about a little bit. Having the generators only be on the base is going to be pretty complex because it means you can only realistically get it a couple of times a turn, sometimes only once per turn. But if you have cards like this that will generate the force with you, being able to have those in combination with your force spenders, you have applicators and spenders. Drain Essence as an applicator is going to allow you to do extra stuff with spending with cards like Sidious, which is pretty good. This is also just a great, again, another good control villainy card, but it's a great card and nonetheless, and it is a common, so it's going to be a draft and limited staple when it comes to playing that. Next up, we have Darth Maul's lightsaber, notably Darth Maul's lightsaber. We know that names mean something, but this is going to specifically call out Darth Maul, which means it's not going to be usable with Maul. 3-cost aggression villainy upgrade attached to a friendly non-vehicle unit. When played, if it's attached to Darth Maul, you may attack with him. For this attack, he gains Overwhelm and cannot attack bases. Plus 4 power, plus 2 health, item weapon lightsaber. This is great in combination with what Maul wants to do because you float it onto either the unit from set 3 or the leader from this set, and that allows you to get a huge attack, especially if you're going to have 2 targets with the unit Maul or 1 good beefy target with the leader unit Maul that allows you to get that extra damage. You can't attack the base, but with Overwhelm, you don't really need to attack the base. And since you're throwing those pings out there anyway to be able to do those damages, you can get a ton of damage onto your opponent's base and wipe out one of their units for a multi-tempo play in your favor by playing this lightsaber, which is pretty cool. Speaking of your own damaged units, we have the Scimitar here, Sith Infiltrator. This is a 4-cost villainy only space unit, 3 power, 4 health, Sith vehicle transport traits. While this unit is damaged, it gets +3/+0. So all you need to do is ping it once with Maul's ability, and all of a sudden it goes from a 3/4 to a 6/3. That's pretty good. And that can clear out basically anything that's on your opponent's side of the board. Ruthless Raiders, Fett's Fire Sprays. You're not going to be able to clear out Star Destroyers, but you're going to be able to clear out a lot of things that you don't want to deal with. And then our last card here is Savage Oppress. 6-cost aggression, villainy, 9 power, 6 health, force, and night traits. It has overwhelm. When played and when defeated, you may use the force. Lose the token. If you don't, deal 9 damage to your base. So there's a pretty interesting dynamic for Savage. As long as you have the force, you can play it. But if your opponent doesn't defeat it in the immediate process of the counter action, you have to make sure you can get the force again, so that way you don't have to worry about triggering the defeat process on this. And this is one of the problems I think is going to be with the force dynamic is that it does restrict you to that one thing. But if you want to take the risk and Savage this guy out, sure, you'll take 9 to base. It would probably either on the when played or the when defeated. But if you can generate that force, you don't have to worry about that. So that's pretty good. Next up, we have a Porg, 0-cost 1/1 creature. The other leader for the Spotlight decks, we have Qui-Gon Jinn, Student of the Living Force. He is our cunning heroism leader, Force Jedi and Republic. Qui-Gon Jinn finally here, ready to save the day. As an action, you can exhaust this leader and use the Force. Return a friendly non-leader unit to its owner's hand. Play a non-villainy unit that costs less than the return unit from your hand for free. So if you return a 5-cost, you can go a 4-cost or less. As an epic action on 6, you can flip him into a 4/7. He is special rarity. I believe this is number 16. It's either 16 or 15 in 264 for LOF. That's our acronym for Legend of the Force. Qui-Gon flips into a 6-cost 4/7, Force Jedi, Republic, whatever. When this unit completes an attack, you may return a friendly non-leader unit to its owner's hand. Then play a non-villainy unit that costs less than the returned unit from your hand for free. So they're both basically once per turn actions unless you can unexhaust Qui-Gon Jinn or ready him and then be able to attack again. But the really big impactful thing about Qui-Gon Jinn is that he's going to allow you to get a ton of value out of when played effects and stealing effects. For example, let's say you've got the contracted hunter in hand, the 3-cost 4/4 with ambush, and this unit's defeated at the end of the phase. You can use that to ambush, and if it survives, you can Qui-Gon him back to hand and throw a fireball out, because that's 2 costs compared to 3 costs, or any 2-cost unit to be able to do things. And then with that ambush, you could ambush again and do some interesting clearing shenanigans with the ability to do those different things, so long as it's a non-villainy unit that's coming from your hand. But if, let's say, you commandeer your opponent's vehicle and attack with it, then you can Qui-Gon it back to their hand, so they have to play it again, and then you get effectively a free unit from your hand, so long as it costs less than the vehicle you stole, or Change of Heart, or Traitorous, or any of those other things that happen as a result of being able to steal an opponent's units and get one of your units in response. So long as the unit that's coming from your hand is non-villainy, this is going to be, that you're going to be able to play it, and this is going to be a very interesting leader. There's a busted in half deck here, and I know someone's going to find it. This is another one of those unrestricted value type leaders, but it is limited by the fact that it's non-villainy, so you can't abuse villainy units. But it is something that's coming into play for free, and free, as we know, can be pretty problematic. But I like the design a lot. I'm sure somebody's going to make some excellent use of it. Let's check out what comes with the Qui-Gon deck. We have here 5 cards. We have an Obi-Wan Kenobi, Protective Padawan, 3-cost command heroism, so we know Qui-Gon Jinn is yellow-green, and then we knew earlier Maul was red-blue. 3 power, 5 health, Force Jedi Republic. When you play a Force unit, this unit gains Sentinel for this phase, including this one. So the turn that Obi-Wan comes down, he's a Sentinel, and then every time you play a Force unit thereafter, he becomes a Sentinel again, because he's a Protective Padawan. We have Refugee of the Path, 1-cost heroism ground unit, 0 power, 3 health, Force fringe traits. When played, you may give a shield token to unit with Sentinel. So you go, I have Obi-Wan on 3, and then on 4, I play my Refugee of the Path, give Obi-Wan Kenobi Sentinel, and then give him a shield from Refugee of the Path. That's pretty good. We have Anakin Skywalker, Force Prodigy, 1 cost, Cunning, Heroism Ground Unit, 1 power, 1 health, Force and Fringe. We have a brand new keyword here called Hidden. This unit can't be attacked if it was played this phase. He also has Shielded, so he comes into play with a shield. So he's a 1/1 with shield. It's technically a worse L3 / Crafty Smuggler, but on later turns when your opponent has ready units and this comes down, he can't be attacked, which is quite good unless your opponent blanks him. But even then, he still has the shield. He can still be sent back to hand, he can still be defeated, he can still be exhausted, all these other different things. But he can't be attacked, which means your opponent can't just remove it. And if force is important for you, you do get that potential guaranteed force attack on the next turn, so long as your opponent doesn't have the initiative. Next, we have Qui-Gon Jinn's Aether Sprites, guided by the Force. 5 cost, Cunning, Heroism, 3 power, 6 health space unit, Jedi Republic vehicle, and fighter traits. On attack, the next time you use a when played ability this phase, you may use that ability again. So you could attack with Qui-Gon's Aether Sprites, send it back to hand since it's a fired effect that exists as long as this attacks. Bring a 4 cost or less unit that has when played and do it twice. That's kind of nuts. When if you have the ability to combo this with something else where you keep the Qui-Gon's Aether Sprite on the board, but then play, like if you're playing double yellow, you play Cantina Bouncer, bounce, double bounce. You don't even need to use Qui-Gon's ability for that. You just combo with those 2 cards. There's going to be a lot of things that happen with this, and I think that ability, Thrawn is when defeated, Qui-Gon Jinn is when played, Blue has a lot of really good when defeated, Yellow has a lot of really good when played. So pay attention to that. Speaking of when played, we have here Stinger Mantis. Where are we going? This is a 5 cost, Cunning, Heroism space unit, 4 power, 6 health, Fringe, vehicle, and transport. When played, you may deal 2 damage to an exhausted unit. So if your opponent has exhausted units, you can Stinger Mantis, play it, deal 2 damage, and if you've attacked a Qui-Gon Jinn's Aether Sprite earlier in the round, as long as this is your next when played, you can do that twice, which is an excellent way of being able to utilize those abilities. Qui-Gon Jinn's ability is also notably not limited to non-vehicles, so you can do whatever you need with a 6 cost unit, send it back to your hand or its owner's hand, and then Stinger Mantis, and be able to do that for free, and then you have a 4/6 on the board ready to go for the next round. There's a lot of combo potential when it comes to Qui-Gon Jinn's units. Speaking of, Stinger Mantis. This is Grease, I can't remember his last name. I want to say Dreyfus, but that's not correct. But it's the pilot from Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor. That means potentially we could be seeing characters like Cal Kestis, BD-1, Marin. I would be happy to have all of those. I'm really hoping for a Cal Kestis leader, but Stinger Mantis being in this set is very exciting because it's one of the first representations of Fallen Order and Survivor, and I can't wait for more cards from those games. More cards from Star Wars video games, period, please. So there it is. That's what we have for our first preview for Legends of the Force. The release date of Legends of the Force is July 11th, a scant 2 weeks before the Galactic Championship, which is going to be a huge meta shift when that happens. So be prepared to get your stuff done. Pre-releases will happen a week before, starting on the 4th, July 4th weekend. Great weekend to do a pre-release for Star Wars Unlimited while everybody's out of town doing their Independence Day shenanigans. That's when people can start getting their product, getting ready for their decks, getting 2 weeks of practice gameplay going to be able to do stuff for the GC. Should be interesting. I'm not going to the GC for the hyper-competitive main event, but I will be doing side events, so I do have to have some of that knowledge. I'll probably bring a couple of cool decks with me and then one deck that I want to try to gain tickets with for the prize wall. But that's neither here nor there. Legends of the Force, fun stuff. Let me know what you think is going to be in this set, what cool stuff is going to be in this set, whether it's plausible or implausible. You know, Legends of the Force invokes a specific name. I don't know if they're going to be doing any type of non-Disney stuff, but the fact that we've seen Stinger Mantis already gives me hope that we'll see Cal Kestis at least, who's one of my newer favorite characters. I know they wouldn't ever do my actual favorite character, who's Galen Merrick Starkiller, in this game, even if they had access to Legends stuff, which they've said they have access to all eras. So, but even then, he's such a niche character, even though he was very popular when the games came out. He's not really referenced all that much anymore, even in Legends stuff. So you know what I mean. Anyway, we'll talk about competitive stuff next week. Lots of things going down. By that point in time, we'll probably have all of the results for the major competitive events, plus our competitive balance pass that might be happening literally tomorrow as of the airing of this video. So be sure to check FFG's YouTube channel on Wednesday. Going forward, previews for me specifically are going to be very different. I'm not going to be going over every single card. If a card has relevance and it's not something I've gone over, I'll tell you at least where it came from so you guys can check that out yourself. But not every card that's previewed has value. So we're going to go over the things that at least I think will have the most impact, or things that will be the most fun to play or have the coolest ideas behind them. But if I see something that's just obvious draft chaff, I'm just not going to cover it. Or I'll show it, showcase where it came from. You guys can figure it out from there, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. Because last time the previews were so close together, especially with the previews coming up on different things, like the end of June, beginning of July is probably going to be a fairly busy time of the year for a lot of people. So there's not going to be enough time to be able to cover every single thing that comes through. But I will cover the things that I think are going to be good, and things I think are going to be important, and things that are going to be fun, even if that's not every single card that comes across. But as always, I'll credit anybody whose previews I'm able to see and cover, including the FFG stuff. All those things will be in the links in the description below, as it is in every video that I make for previews for Star Wars Unlimited. But with that, that's all we've got for this week. Thank you very much for joining me, folks. Appreciate each and every one of you. Like and comment on this video. Let me know what your favorite thing you've seen so far from Legends of the Force is. Let me know what your favorite thing you're excited for in Legends of the Force. Let me know what you think about the Force mechanic. Subscribe to the Star Wars Unlimited channel for all of your Star Wars Unlimited needs. Thank you very much for all of your time and effort in my videos. Appreciate y'all. That's all we got. And I will see you in the stars.